Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Louisa and today I have a special guest. So this is John and he's going to talk today about mental health in Christianity and also a unique personal perspective on having been a pastor. So I'm extremely grateful for you to be here. Thank you so much. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah. So if you want to tell people your background, maybe not like everything, but
sure.
if you want to talk about like what you do now and who you are and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So right now I'm a mental health consultant and I work primarily in heavy industry, so mining, manufacturing, construction, a little bit in water, utilities. But I wasn't always a mental health consultant. My background is chemical engineering.
Oh, right.
Which is probably why I'm drawn to working in heavy industry. So as a chemical engineer, I enjoyed working in the pulp and paper sector. That's how I ended up down here in Tasmania.
Right.
So my background is engineering. You might be wondering how I ended up in mental health. It's kind of a leap.
Yeah.
And I ended up there because I crashed and burned and ended up in mental health. So essentially I experienced depression, anxiety, which were a result of occupational burnout. And I'd gotten to the point of being suicidal before I actually realised that something was wrong with me. I guess a lot of people with depression and anxiety don't know that they've got it. There's still a lot of lack of information out there. And I just thought it was my situation, the context that I was in. And but yeah, when I started to experience suicidal thoughts and was kind of deep into that planning stage of how am I going to end my life, that I thought there's got to be something wrong with me, with my head.
Right, that's kind of a big sign.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is a big sign that something's wrong. I think, you know, we're all sort of wired to live, I suppose, and kind of survive. This survival response is really strong in humans.
Yeah.
So when you're actually thinking of taking yourself out, it definitely means that something's not right. And I managed to get help, I guess. I don't really talk to people about getting help much because people don't like getting help, particularly in the male-dominated industries that I work in. Guys don't want to get help, so I don't often talk about getting help. But anyway, I got help and I managed to kind of put my life back together. It was such an interesting experience being unwell and then getting well again. And then I thought to myself, there's got to be so many other people out there who are experiencing these really common conditions and having no idea that they're having it. So I thought I want to retrain, get involved in mental health, and maybe I could help some people that otherwise wouldn't be helped.
Yeah. So especially in the male-dominated, like the really tough occupations where
absolutely.
It's all about like, oh yeah, I don't need any help.
No, it's the harden up sunshine kind of approach, kick yourself up the arse and and just kind of soldier on. I think males have this sense of masculinity which means that you've got to be independent, you've got to solve your own problems, you can't ask for help, otherwise you're weak, and all those kind of constructs, and a lot of them are quite unhealthy, really.
Yeah, which I think a lot of people are kind of cottoning on to, but...
we're working it out. I think males have worked out that our sense of masculinity does have issues, but we don't have... No one's kind of offered us an alternative.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we work out an alternative, and I know this is getting off topic a little bit.
Oh, that's okay.
But because I can't give males an alternative masculinity quickly, I just work within the construct. Yeah. So when I'm encouraging help seeking for males, I'm talking about take action, find a way to get back on your feet, get tools, get skills, get resources, get someone in your corner. Find a way to turn this around. So it's very action-orientated language, which plays into masculinity.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's quite clever. Yeah.
You've got to find ways to get to people, and communicate with them where they're at today. Yeah,
and to sort of speak their language, which I guess is kind of the terrain that I'm navigating as a Christian psychology student, like trying to be a psychologist and a Christian. And sort of trying to traverse those two language barriers.
Yeah, absolutely. You're kind of translating from one field to another field and sort of bridging the gap between them, which is really interesting. Yeah, and it involves understanding both worlds. And when you can kind of be a bit of a translator.
Yeah, and it's interesting that, like, you know, we're all theoretically talking English, but everyone's got their own languages that they speak within their little cultural group, I suppose. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, how did you get started in the mental health field? Did you do any kind of training, and how did you decide to actually get into that?
Yeah,
field?
So I guess I was really motivated to help people who were experiencing something similar to me, which is basically you're experiencing one of these really common mental illnesses and having kind of no idea that it is a medical condition. You just feel like you're crazy, you feel like you're weak, you've failed, you've lost hope. And these are all symptoms of really common medical conditions, depression and anxiety. So there was still a lot of misinformation at the time, and I wanted to get that information out there and point people in the right direction. So I did a lot of on-the-job training. I took a job with Anglicare, working in their family mental health support service. And using my lived experience, I guess, was my really big asset. That the fact that I could talk about my own lived experience meant that it normalised it for other people. They felt validated, they felt safe talking to me about it, that they knew that I understood not necessarily how they experienced it, but I understood the experience of it.
Yeah.
And I'd recovered, so that gave them hope as well. So we know that lived experience and peer support play a really important role in people recovering on that mental health journey. So Anglicare put me through a lot of training, Beyond Blue, so I became a Beyond Blue public speaker, and they give me speaking gigs from time to time, Suicide Prevention Australia, a lot of on-the-job stuff like motivational interviewing, trauma-informed practice, then mental health first aid, and then I eventually went on to become a mental health first aid instructor, and I'm one of a handful of Tasmania's mental health master instructors. So a lot of on-the-job training and developing my own resources as well.
Yeah, and sort of working within an industry that has structure and has all of those practices in place, so that you've got mentoring as well and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So working in the NGO kind of space, the non-government space, meant that there was a lot of maturity in that, a lot of experience around me as well. So a lot of support, a lot of mentoring, which was great.
Yeah, and the lived experience part is certainly something that has come up a lot more, because a lot of people that I've spoken to, when they talk about psychologists and the potential of going to a psychologist who's still in their 20s.
Right.
And it's like, ooh, do you know life experience? Have you gone through these different life phases where you have to kind of navigate very serious stuff as an adult, and it's like, ooh, you're fresh out of school. I'm not sure. Yeah, so
it's really interesting. We kind of have psychology in a really different category, because if you took your car to a mechanic and there was a young 20-year-old and he was a real tech geek, and you had an electrical fault or something, you'd think this kid's going to fix it. If you needed an ultrasound and you were pregnant and you went, and the sonographer was 23, 24, 25, you wouldn't be saying, have you given birth? How many babies have you gestated? It'd be kind of like, I'm sure this sonographer knows their stuff. But then when it comes to psychology, it's like, we want you to have life experience, and have you been through divorce, and have you been through grief, and have you, parented before, and how's your marriage, and all these things. So, it's a really hard stretch for psychologists, and that's really not what psychology is about. But people have that standard. Yeah,
it is a science, and there is a lot of technical knowledge to it.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people underrate the technical knowledge of mental health, because it's less of a precise science than computers and machines, and we're a bit more complicated, but that doesn't mean that someone who's done the training hasn't also understood what is necessary and what is important for recovery and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really see psychologists, because I use psychologists whenever I become unwell. So with mental illness, it's often episodic. If you've had one episode, you're more likely to have two. So it's kind of one of those things that my approach is to try and get the symptoms into remission as much as possible and manage them from day to day. But if I become too unwell, then I just go to a psychologist again.
Go back to go
back to my skills and tools and the things that I've got in my little toolkit. And one of those is a psychologist. And I really just see them as consultants for my head.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's basically. So I don't need you to have a successful marriage or be a successful mum or dad. I just need you to be a good consultant for my head.
Yes, yeah. And sometimes it is easier to deal with other people's problems than your own.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the wood for the trees aspect of things.
Totally.
Yeah. So, it's much easier to diagnose other people than yourself.
And that's fine for me. Works for me.
So your background is kind of unique in that you have actually worked as a pastor in a church. You've done all that stuff. And also it was quite a large charismatic church. And so I'm a charismatic. I'm not bagging out charismatics in any way. But there is a unique culture in that. And I think every single denomination has their own kind of cultural lens that they look at things through. So that's where our background is with Christianity in some aspects, although I grew up Anglican, so...
Yeah, me too.
Oh, okay.
Baptised into the Anglican church, so
right.
as a little one.
Yes. So that's... you get a few mixtures like that. But can you tell us, how did you get into that position from engineering? What was your journey as a pastor?
So I became a charismatic Christian in university, so I was already studying engineering at the time and attended a really large church in Melbourne. It's probably either the largest or second largest church in Melbourne.
Wow, yeah.
So
pretty big?
Yeah, so my introduction to Christianity was, I guess, that sort of big scale kind of mega church with satellite churches as well. So at the time... I felt called to be a leader, and so I kind of really early on in the piece believed that I would eventually become a pastor, become a leader. And I kind of kept that under my hat because I sort of feel like if you go around telling everyone this is what's going to happen, you can kind of influence your own destiny. And that if I don't tell anyone and it kind of comes to pass,
then it's from God. And
exactly.
Okay.
So I worked in the pulp and paper sector, kept that under my hat. I was obviously involved in church leadership, small group leadership, worship leading, that sort of thing. And then moved down to Tasmania to work in the pulp and paper sector down here and got really involved in the church down here. Became a youth leader, then young adult leader, then assistant pastor, and then eventually I was asked to come on full time. So I didn't put my hat into the ring for the job when it came up because I thought if they want me to work for them, then they'll approach me. Yeah. So the job had come up a couple of years earlier, and I didn't apply for it. But then when it vacated again, I was actually asked, we think you should be, come on staff. And so I came on staff, and then the senior pastor left, and I kind of ended up becoming the senior pastor of the church. So, it kind of just unfolded.
Which was, I guess, what you were hoping for initially. That's right. So it seemed very led by God, not by your own agenda kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And so at that point, obviously, I gave engineering away and just did that full time.
Yeah. And it's such an unusual job. As a pastor, and certainly as a lead pastor, because you're kind of the face and the voice of the church, and you have a lot of authority. So heaps of pressure. A
lot of authority, a lot of responsibility.
And so, do you think that was sort of part of the burnout process? Looking back on it, especially with mental health experience now, what would you say are a lot of the factors that contributed to the burnout process?
Yeah, like you say, being a pastor is absolutely a interesting construct. It's not a good one. It's not necessarily a healthy one. And we could go into the theology and how that role of today's pastor has been developed through history.
It's sort of changed a bit.
It's kind of morphed.
Yeah.
Today's pastor in charismatic kind of fundamentalist mega churches, they're essentially CEOs.
Right, yeah.
And I feel like a lot of them, the guys in big churches, would have made super successful CEOs of private enterprise if they weren't Christians anyway. So it's kind of like they have that sort of ability. But I made a bit of a list of things that I think contributed to my burnout and potentially contributes to burnout of other pastors as well in general.
Yeah.
So high demand or excessive demand, job demand if you like. I don't know if you've heard of this new code of practice under workplace health and safety regulations, but there's a new code of practice in Tasmania called Managing Psychosocial Hazards in the Workplace.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And it's being adopted nationwide now, but essentially it means that businesses need to identify and manage psychological hazards in the workplace that can essentially harm people. And the first one that they list in this new guideline is job demand. And job demand is just excessive as a pastor. You're on all the time. Partly because your job is who you are. So you are a pastor and you work as a pastor.
As well.
Yeah, so it's a lifestyle as well. So it is your identity, it is who you are, it's who you're called to be, it's who you're gifted to be, it is your makeup, it is your identity, that's who you are. But it's also your job as well. So where does your job end and where does your personal life start? It doesn't really.
No.
So you're on all the time, you're a pastor all the time. There's no end to the work as a pastor. You know, there's not even really a job description. You can't say, I am fulfilling my job today. I got all my job done today and now I can knock off. You can't. It's just impossible.
Would you get phone calls in the middle of the night?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Yeah. I had a phone call one night, or it was on a weekend, I can't remember, from a friend whose wife had just passed away, and he wanted me to come and pray with him. And I went there and literally had to try and close her eyes. She was dead in the bed.
Oh my goodness.
There's always something. And even if you have friends over, generally your friends are part of your church anyway. So when they're in your home or you're in their home, are they a congregant or are they a friend? And if they're telling you a problem, do I listen as a friend? Do I listen as a pastor? Am I working now? Do we need to pray about this?
Yeah.
Do I need to offer some sort of support because I'm your pastor? I mean, the whole thing just gets really muddied.
And I guess there would be that kind of awkwardness with your friends, like, do you have their social support?
Yeah.
Because they look up to you.
Right.
They come to you, and you're in this sort of separate, lofty position. So are you allowed to be human?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So you might be careful about how vulnerable you might be.
And sort of
and
censor
how much
yourself.
Support you might ask for.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, ideally, God should be supporting me and speaking to me, and I should be supporting you and encouraging you. So kind of...
Sure, but... But also...
No, it's ridiculous. I can see your face like, that's silly. It is silly, but that's what actually works out on the ground.
Yeah, that's how people interpret what it means to be a pastor.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's hardcore.
I know, it's crazy, right? So the other one is unachievable standards. So people, like we were talking about with psychologists.
Like, not allowed to be human.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And not allowed to be inexperienced in other aspects.
Yeah. I mean, people will cut you a little bit of slack. So there's the idea of being the wounded healer. That's cool. And, basically all of Jesus' disciples were a little bit cracked.
Yes.
So that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
So to some extent you're allowed to have flaws, but they've got to be okay flaws. Like they can't be sins.
Acceptable flaws.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got to be sanitised flaws. So you can't sin. I mean, that's just out of the question.
Right.
You're gone if you sin. You're cancelled.
So you're allowed to have like past sins.
Yeah, you're allowed to. In fact, that can work to your advantage.
Yeah.
If you had a pretty checkered past before you became a Christian.
Yeah.
But as a pastor, you just really can't slip up. You're a public figure. You're kind of at the top of the heap. People hold you to a higher standard than they hold themselves.
Yeah.
So if you do something that they disagree with, they're going to go after you hammer and tongs.
Like morally disagree with, kind of?
Yeah, morally disagree with, or even just a judgment or a decision that you've made.
All right, yeah.
Which
you have to make constantly.
Which you're making constantly. So you're
Yeah.
always going to be disappointing someone, and you're always going to be faced with some level of criticism
Right.
from some section of your congregation, and you're just trying to manage that all the time.
Yeah.
I remember when we wanted to improve lighting inside our services, so being able to use floodlights and coloured lights and things like that. So we actually had to block out natural light. We wanted to use multimedia as well. Some mornings the sun was shining so brightly through the windows that you couldn't actually see the multimedia. So quality-wise, it wasn't where we wanted to be. So we decided to black out the windows. And there was a certain section of the congregation that were praying against this decision because blacking out natural light was somehow
Against God.
accommodating darkness, and it was this whole spiritualisation of blacking out the windows.
Okay.
And that's the kind of thing you have to manage.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
want to just slap people. And you want to call it out for what it is, but you can't.
Yeah.
So
You have to be diplomatic at all times.
you have to be really diplomatic. So you kind of almost have to be suppressing some of your own emotional needs and being really diplomatic. And that's the tough thing because this is the irony, and was one of my other points, is that essentially when you become a senior pastor, you become a CEO of a really large business. So the church that I was CEO of was essentially a $1.5 million organisation when you take into consideration all the properties that we had, the buildings and the annual giving and the budget that we were running. So it's a pretty big enterprise. And I need people, I need bums on seats, because bums on seats give me money.
That's income.
That's income, and I have all of these outgoings as well. So I can't afford to lose a quarter of my congregation because I've blacked out the windows, and anyone who doesn't like it can bugger off and go to a church with windows.
Yeah.
I can't say that. I need to kind of manage that really delicately and really sensitively because I have a budget to meet. I can't afford to lose those people. Some of the other I think contributors to burnout, and I've kind of already alluded to that, is this emotional masking. So you do a lot of masking of your own emotions. You do a lot of ignoring of your own internal kind of states.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily manage your own emotional needs very well because you're really concentrating on the needs of others and who you need to be in this situation.
Yeah.
So
for another person rather than for yourself.
Absolutely, and for yourself. So that can be a real trap. And then who are you in the end, and what are your needs, and do they even matter anyway?
Yeah.
And then you just begin to ignore them.
Because you would sort of lose touch with your sense of self.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
In that process.
Yeah, you totally lose sense of self. Who am I if I'm not a pastor? Who am I if I'm not in this role? What am I like, and what are my likes and dislikes, and how do I want to be outside of this? You just lose sight of all that.
Because there's, you see that a lot with kids who grow up with parents who have a lot of emotional needs of their own, who lean heavily on their children to fulfill those needs.
Absolutely.
They suppress their own needs to the extent that they actually aren't in touch with what they want and what they need. And it has a lot of very serious mental health impacts.
Oh yeah, totally, because their identity doesn't really form properly. There's not that solid sense of self.
So you can get things like borderline
personality disorder. Absolutely.
Which is very distressing for people. Complex PTSD.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Long-lasting, serious effects.
Yeah.
And so suicidality is unfortunately a very real byproduct.
It's a big part of BPD and complex PTSD, absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of the other things, being undermined, criticised, white-anted, there's always someone that will not like the decisions that you're making, or not like a sermon, or not like your theology.
Do they make it very personal in some respects? Or
I think so. Yeah. Yep, and it is all very personal. Your theology and my sermon, that comes from my heart. And my decisions and all those kind of things, that comes from a really, often a good place. And being criticised I found really difficult because a lot of it was unwarranted. A lot of it was uneducated as well. So it's not like someone has come to me and said, help me understand some of the reasonings behind these decisions or behind your teaching or whatever it might be. It's just someone from afar kind of lobbing rocks. And that's hard to swallow because you're not allowed to lob rocks back.
Yes.
So I can't criticise back. I can just absorb it and suck it up and kind of just smile and wave.
Yeah.
So that was really difficult.
That would be like being a human punching bag.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a lot of respects.
Yeah. And I guess people in public life are often like that, but it nothing prepares you for that.
Yeah. In a lot of public life, though, you can respond.
Yeah, potentially.
Potentially, yeah. Not. So some people, like, you look at, the royal family, and they have a policy of pretty much not responding.
Yeah.
Never complain, never explain.
Yeah.
Is their motto.
But they also have media advisors, and they can put on their own spin and release their own stories and stuff like that.
They have people around them.
Yeah.
Who can filter these things.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Provide advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a tough one. Doing the wrong thing to get the right result.
Ooh, so like compromising your ethics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the greater good.
The greater good.
Yeah, the greater good, exactly.
Yeah.
Quote unquote.
Yeah.
So, we're essentially leaders in a volunteer organisation, and we need volunteers, we need givers, we need people to serve, we need bums on seats to grow the church.
You need generosity, in other words.
Yeah, we need generosity, we need people to sacrifice their time. I mean, we need people to sacrifice a lot of time. Mm-hmm. So in order to get people to do that, you need to pull on certain levers, because we're not paying people, so we can't employ people to do this stuff. And you don't have a lot of control over people. So you can't say, look, if you don't do this, I'm going to fire you. They're volunteers, right? So you end up pulling on levers that you probably shouldn't pull on. Mm-hmm. And I think that's corrosive to do that. And unfortunately, a lot of pastors do this in the big churches.
Right, yeah. Use sort of manipulation tactics?
Yeah, it's manipulation.
Yeah.
Call it what it is. Yeah.
We're just going to be like super duper honest.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah.
And like, even though I am a Christian, like, I think the church benefits from open conversations about our human foibles, because that's the whole point of Christianity, is that we have a really hard look at ourselves. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess I could give you an example.
Oh, if you feel like it.
Well, basically what we would do is we would say that if someone is doing XYZ, jumping through all our hoops, then they are they're building God's house.
Right.
They are, and different churches come up with different words to describe this. So you might be a vision keeper, or you might be a kingdom builder, or you might be, so we'll give you these names and these titles. And basically we see the church as these concentric rings. So the people in the inner ring, they are your best people.
Right.
The people in the outer ring, they've just joined, they're a bit clueless, they don't really know what they're doing. They come every now and then, but it's my job as a pastor to move you to the next ring, to the next ring, to the next ring, and get you into the centre ring.
Okay.
So in the centre ring, what we have people who attend small groups, even better, lead small groups. Mm-hmm. So they do that once a week. They'll volunteer somewhere else in the church, so it could be children's ministry, music ministry, media ministry, teaching, food, whatever. There's so many ministries. We want you to do that. We want you to do that weekly as well. We want you to come to 2 services, so a morning and an evening service on a Sunday, and we want you to give a 10% of your income pre-tax, because God should get it first before the tax man, so it's got to be pre-tax. Then we want you to give to missions as well. So 10% before tax, that's your tithe. And then we want you to give to missions as well.
Right.
And if we have a building fund as well. So they are your best people. So basically what we do is we make them feel great.
Right.
So we reward that, we talk about that, we honour that, we appreciate that, we preach to that, we thank God for people like that when we're praying.
Yeah. Do they sort of have prominent positions?
Yeah, they have permissions. You'll know who they are because we'll point them out.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, subtly, or not that subtly. And then if you're on the outer rings, you basically know that you're on the outer ring. So you know where you are.
Yeah.
And there's kind of this group pressure to be a better Christian.
Yeah.
And to serve God better and honour God better with your life and build His kingdom and serve His vision.
So you're looking for more and more commitment from people for time and resources that the church can use.
Absolutely.
To grow the business.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we want to create social pressure, religious pressure, theological pressure, whatever pressure we can get to move people from the outer to the inner. And that then grows His church, will reach more people, will heal more lives, will honour God in a greater way, and so it's all for the greater good.
Right.
Yeah.
And how much of it actually does reach people and the community?
Yeah, look, if you just do it basically if you just look at numbers, there's 0.0 impact.
Right, yeah.
I mean, if we get...
Some of the missions would have...
If we get 300 or 400 people to a Sunday service in Devonport, you know, it's out of a population of 30,000 people, it's not a massive impact.
No. And
most of Devonport really don't know what's going on, because what we've got going on is in a building. It's very location based and time based.
Yes, yeah. So it's pretty much just a few hours a week that you reach some people in the community.
In that community,
yeah.
I mean, that wasn't the plan, but that's how it ends up. So the plan is that you've got the church 24/7 influencing the community, but it just doesn't transpire that way because the way we run modern churches is very building-centric, program-centric.
Yeah, which is not really what the early church did.
Not. No.
Because they had like their house churches, which was their community.
Yep, absolutely.
And
they were kind of out there, just sort of...
Yeah, and then they went out and preached on the street. So
exactly.
street preachers, essentially, or in the temples and places like that. Yeah. So it was constant outreach.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just a few like local house sessions for themselves to meet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why this whole mega church, modern day church, is kind of, it's a long stretch from what the Bible kind of talks about.
Yeah. And the tithing aspect, I mean, that was more for the priests in the old law. That wasn't really
exactly.
the first church.
Yeah, we know that people in the early church gave, but the whole idea, I mean, even that word tithe, I'm not even sure it's mentioned much in the New Testament. It's very much an Old Testament concept.
Yeah.
But you know, we've just borrowed that because it serves our needs. Once churches went to owning buildings, I think that was a massive turning point. Yeah. Because once you own a building, you've got to pay for that building and you've got the upkeep of that building, and then having professional pastors and all these staff members. Essentially, if you run it like a business, you will fall into these pitfalls of needing money.
You have to use a business model to run a business.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate, but that's reality.
Yeah.
And so I guess the homeless church is more of a or the home church is more of a real aspect of what Christianity was and probably should be.
Yeah.
But yeah, how do we do that in the modern age?
There's still churches on the fringe that are pushing that, meeting in cinemas and meeting in cafes on Sundays that aren't open. And so there's still churches on the fringes doing that. But the mega church has been the loudest and the boldest and the
most successful.
Again, quote unquote. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it leads to burnout for pastors. It's so common.
Yeah.
One of the other reasons why I think I burned out was there's this idea of faithfulness to God as well. So I believed that if I just kept going and being faithful to God, no matter how exhausted I was becoming, that God would honour my faithfulness.
Your sacrifice.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So even if you're becoming unwell,
just soldier on.
Just soldier on, right?
Yeah.
I'm dead to myself, alive to Christ, which is a really... I'm not sure I really understand that idea from a mental health perspective. So now that I work in mental health, and I don't know about you as a psychologist, but the idea of dying to self means I don't have any needs, I don't have an identity, my identity is now Christ.
I wouldn't say no needs.
But I'm dead. I'm dead to Christ. I'm dead to the world and alive to Christ.
Yeah.
And He is alive in me. So He lives through me. I'm dead to myself.
I've always understood that to be, I'm dead to like my own agenda.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's self-will.
Yeah, Christ gave up His will in order to carry out the Father's will. And so it's not so much your own will about what you want your life to look like, what job you have, where you live, that sort of thing. It's more like you are where God wants you to be to reach more people and to preach the gospel. Not so much that you sacrifice your well-being.
Yeah, well, that's where it ended up for me.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's the thing about...
it's interesting, the theology behind that, because there are different interpretations of what the Bible says, and some denominations interpret it very differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would... You kind of prefaced at the start that we're charismatic Christians, but I would also say that we're charismatic fundamentalists, or I'd say that for me.
That you were, or...
Yeah. So very fundamentalist, it's kind of literally, that is God's literal word.
Yeah.
And it must be followed. So deny yourself. So Jesus would say, I've denied myself for the sake of the Father, and we are to deny ourselves. So I was very much denying my own needs, and here I am with a serious mental illness and saying I'm dead to self, I deny myself, I will serve Him and His will for my life, and if I do that, then He'll sort out all the rest. It's quite simplistic, but it is very fundamental thinking.
Yeah, and there's a real lack of kind of nuance in some interpretations of the Bible, because even the Bible is nuanced.
Yeah, right.
And there's like, when the Pharisees were saying to Jesus, oh, you're plucking seeds on the Sabbath. And Jesus was like, well, David went and ate the showbread in the temple, which is only for the priests.
Yeah.
And so there are exceptions to the laws
exactly.
when it comes to your health and well-being.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to die, if your well-being is at stake, there are exceptions to the rules.
Yeah. Like, if you drank some holy water, God's not like, well, you shouldn't have done that. God's like, well, it's water, you needed it.
Yeah. I see, like, the nuance in the scriptures with, like, Elijah, for example. He was not very happy, and all he really needed was a break and a meal. Yeah. And so sometimes you just need...
Yeah, see, those guys, they had burnout too.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Paul had burnout. Burnout's not a new thing.
Probably not, no.
I guess, so I kind of just soldiered on, hoping that I'd get some sort of breakthrough. I think I was not equipped to be a CEO, and I was not equipped to look at all the budgets and the staff development and the strategic plans and all of the aspects of running a large business and managing property and doing property development, building development.
Yeah. That wasn't really your
It's not my thing.
bent.
It's no.
Yeah.
I loved people and I wanted to inspire people. I wanted to motivate people. I wanted to galvanise people. I wanted people to be passionate about God and His kingdom and passionate about what God wanted for their lives. That's what makes me come alive. And now I'm doing all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm dragged away from what my strengths are and what my passion is. But it's inevitable. If you're going to be a senior pastor, you're just going to get dragged into board meetings and staff meetings and and having to sack people and employ people, and it's it gets really nasty. So that led to burnout. And I guess, the last thing I put down there was, just this question of why is the pastor at the top of the heap anyway?
Right, yeah.
So,
what qualifies him to be?
I know. It's like, it's just this weird thing. But, I mean, that's a theological discussion, but I don't think that was a good, healthy space for me and probably a lot of pastors as well. Yeah.
So, would you say, if you're going to run the church like a business model, should there be a separate role for
absolutely.
running the business that's not the pastor?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
You need an operations manager or general manager, and they should try and operate that as smoothly as possible, low profile, just take care of that so that God's work can go on. It should facilitate that, I suppose. Yeah. I suppose it's almost a little bit like, I guess, what the New Testament deacons were kind of doing.
Yeah.
Just organising stuff and making it happen behind the scenes. Logistics, right, exactly. Yeah.
Because they still had to, eat and sleep somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then, I guess if we get away from this building model, this kind of mega church model, there's going to be a lot less of that operational stuff anyway. But there's still going to be some stuff, and then freeing up the pastor to do what they do. But even still, I still don't get why, there's the fivefold ministry: apostle, pastor, prophet, evangelist and teacher. Yeah. We only have one. We just got the pastor doing everything.
Literally everything.
Where are those other guys?
Yeah.
I don't know. And anyway, having them on the top of the heap is stupid. It's a very historical idea, so it's almost Pharisaical. Old Testament priest on the top of the heap. And then, we had that whole Catholicism thing, the Pope's on the top of the heap.
I was going to say, that's a very Catholic structure.
So it's just this legacy. But, I don't think that the New Testament pastors were at the top of the heap. I just think that they were just like everybody else, but they just had this particular gifting.
They might have almost been like a small group leader.
Yeah.
In many respects.
Possibly. Or even just shepherding people, and maybe the pastor should be at the bottom of the heap. Maybe we should be supporting everyone else. But the irony of the modern day pastor is that basically he gets a vision from God, or she, and says, this is our vision, and you sell it to people and then you make it our vision, even though it's my vision. You sell it to people and then it's our vision and we all serve the vision, which is really my vision. So I'm at the top of the heap. You're here to fulfill what I think God has in store for us.
Right, yeah.
Which then enslaves everyone to this particular way of doing church and the direction we're going and all that sort of thing. Whereas if the opposite was true, that meant that Louisa has a vision from God. She follows the Holy Spirit. I'm her pastor, so I'm saying, Louisa, what's in your heart? And how can I help you achieve what's in your heart? And that would be so awesome, because then there's no pressure on me, there's no pressure on you, there's no manipulation. I can just help you be your very best and support you to do whatever God has called you to do in life. And then I'm happy and you're happy. So why don't we put the pastor at the bottom of the heap to help everyone achieve what God has called them to do?
Yeah, so there's an expectation that people will come to church with their own visions for how to progress God's work.
Totally. In their life, in their world, in the world that they engage in.
Yeah.
So tip the pyramid upside down, put the pastor at the bottom, I say.
Well, isn't that what Jesus essentially said?
I'm pretty sure.
Like,
but how do we end up here?
Yeah, those who want to be at the top need to be the servant of all.
Exactly, yeah. And also it says in Corinthians that we give more honour to the lesser parts.
Yeah.
But we don't. We give more honour to the pastor, which is the more prominent part.
So, as a psychology student, I do sometimes get quite a bit of pushback from Christians about psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So, I do see, in some respects, a lot of like fear and wariness and mistrust of things like the health professions. It's sort of broadening more now because in previous times, like, there was no problem with doctors, but it's becoming more generalized. Like, people don't want to go to the doctor, people don't want to see mental health professionals and things like that. So in your experience as both a previous pastor and now a mental health professional, have you seen much of that with Christianity, like the culture of Christianity? Yeah.
Because I was that.
You were that.
So, as a pastor, I had no idea about mental health or mental illness. Had a couple of people in the congregation with mental health problems, and I just didn't have a lot of compassion. I kind of felt like they must have been doing their faith wrong.
Oh, right.
Doing Christianity wrong.
Just believe harder?
They're just believe harder, pray harder, do the word more, follow God better kind of thing, and it will all sort of go away.
Right, yeah.
So really low levels of what you'd call psychoeducation. The skepticism around psychology, I think, is the idea that a lot of psychology is new age.
Right.
So one of the threats that the church perceived back in the 90s was the new age movement.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of interest in kind of crystals and tarot cards and Ouija boards and, just this whole kind of new age movement.
Yeah.
And psychology kind of got wrapped up in all of that psychology has new agey kind of thoughts and it's going to subvert people and it's not in line with God's word, and psychologists are telling people stuff. And
I can kind of shed some light on the situation. So I used to be in the new age. I used to be a Wiccan.
And, there you go, wow.
Yeah, so
I had a Wiccan boss actually.
Okay. So I know that in the New Age circles they do use a lot of psychology terminology.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And they do kind of have a bit of pseudo-psychology in their, I guess, theology.
Yeah, so think, therefore I am, kind of put it out to the universe and it will come back to you.
A lot of stuff is very mind-based, and so they like psychology a lot, but they wouldn't really like real psychology.
Right, yeah, no.
And so having been in the New Age, and then I started my psychology degree, and then I was approached by God, and all of that fell apart, so that was interesting. And then continuing with my psychology degree, and I was like, oh, should I be studying this or should I not be studying this? And it's like, no, keep studying this.
Yeah.
Was sort of the word at that point, and I was like, okay, I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
And so I found out that it wasn't actually New Age, it was a science. And so a lot of my previous New Age beliefs and things didn't fit the psychology model.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of woo-woo and psychobabble.
So there you have it, Christians. Psychology is not New Age, because we heard it from someone who
former
was
New Age.
Exactly, there we go. It's settled now, so we can all breathe a sigh of relief.
So psychology would have dismantled a lot of my beliefs in that regard anyway, because I would have had to have disciplined myself to look at things more logically and more skeptically and not go off on all these weird tangents. So yeah.
So there was that skepticism as well. So essentially I think fundamental Christianity has been really simplistic about mental illness. And when I'm talking about mental illness, I'm talking about medical conditions.
Yeah.
But they're invisible ones. So I guess maybe that's why we had a bit of trouble with them as opposed to physical health conditions. But essentially the way we saw it was that if you follow God, and this is partly due to the prosperity doctrine as well, but if you follow God, God wants you to be healthy, wealthy, wise. He wants you to have strong marriages.
Have lots of babies.
Great children. He wants you to have influence. He wants you to be successful, because when the world sees us as being successful, they'll say, wow, these people are onto something. What is it? What is it about these people? How amazing. And then we can tell them about Jesus. So that's the whole idea of the prosperity doctrine. So anything that's kind of the opposite of the prosperity doctrine means that either God's not blessing you for some reason, or you're not believing, so you're lacking in faith, you're not praying, you're not reading His Word, you're not maybe attending church, or maybe you're not serving Him fully, or maybe you're not committed to Him fully.
So basically they haven't read Job.
Yeah, but you know, Job, Shmob. Job's the Old Testament.
The New Covenant.
Yeah, the New Covenant.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, look at guys like Joel Osteen and people like that. Like, he has his own jet, and like they're just like the money that those guys have.
Yeah, and they're not even ashamed of it.
No, they
see it as evidence.
Oh, absolutely.
Of blessing.
Yeah, no, they're holding that up, saying you can have this too.
Yeah.
So when it comes to your health, if you're experiencing a mental illness, and particularly mental illness, which means that there's something going on with your mind, your soul, if you like, it's just not aligned with the Holy Spirit. Your soul, there's something wrong there. And so it's either you and you're doing something wrong, or it's the devil.
Right. Yeah.
And somehow he's got a foothold in your life. So we would be more prone to trying to cast out a demon of mental illness than suggesting that someone goes to a GP.
It's medical help.
Yeah.
For something which is actually an injury. Because
absolutely.
Because even though like we can't externally see these things, thanks to technology these days, we can image these things, and there are real physical injuries involved. Brain changes. Unfortunately, thank God, the brain is plastic, so you can
recover.
You can recover and heal. So it's not permanent necessarily, but in the same way that like you said before, you've got a weakness, and it's kind of like my tennis elbow. Ever since I injured that, I am prone to re-injure it. If I do the wrong thing. And so the same thing happens with your brain. If you have a pre-existing injury with your brain, then you have a vulnerability to sort of re-injure it, or to have that flare up again. In different ways.
I mean, the statistics tell us, National Mental Health and Wellbeing Household Survey tell us that about 1 in 5 of the population in any 12-month period will experience a common mental illness of either depression, anxiety, or substance use disorder. But anxiety is by far the most. So 1 in 5. So that means that statistically every pastor has a church in which 20% of their congregants are going to experience in some 12-month period really common mental illness. But what are you doing for them? Like, how are you supporting their recoveries and their understanding? And maybe pastors could say, well, that's not our job. That's the health field, whatever.
Which
people should just go to the doctor. But
partly true, and should be something that they recommend is like actually going to a doctor.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But just even having that conversation, I never heard a sermon or a message about mental health. But the church that you go to, progressive churches are thinking about these things, which is absolutely fantastic. So
because I mean, people need it.
Yeah,
it's
so common, absolutely. And we need to, and Christians need to understand, where does that sit? Where does this mental illness sit in relation to my faith? What does it mean about my faith? What does it mean about God?
And like the thing is, you might have that sort of permanent injury, essentially, in your life, and it's kind of like, you know, Paul's thorn in the side.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily going to preclude you from being an effective Christian.
Not at all. In fact, it might make you more effective. I can absolutely swear that I'm a more compassionate person since having had a severe mental illness than I was before.
Yeah, understanding it from the point of view of someone who has suffered from that affliction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the irony was, I remember when because I got to a point where I literally just couldn't work anymore. I was so fried. So I resigned my position and I became a stay-at-home dad for a little while. And I remember going to Coles to pick up some groceries for the family, and there was a guy in a wheelchair outside of Coles, and I walked out and he had some football scarf on or something, and I said, how do you reckon you'll go? How do you reckon your team will go this weekend? And I just struck up this conversation with this dude in this wheelchair. To be honest, if I was a pastor, I would never have had that conversation.
Yeah.
I would not have stopped at all, under any circumstances, to talk to some random dude in a wheelchair at Coles. Because I was just so busy. I was so busy.
Focused,
it wasn't above me.
Yeah.
I was just so busy. I was running right on the edge.
Right. Yeah, so like the time pressure that you're under as a mega church pastor in some respects.
And all the problems that you're dealing with and issues, and your just time is so finely prioritised and maximised that you
don't have time for people.
Would not have time to just connect with another human being who, you know, is in a wheelchair right in front of you. There's this. Have you heard of this experiment that they did on compassion, where they gave theological students? They actually did this Good Samaritan exercise with theology students, which is really fun. They said to half the students, you need to get to your lecture immediately. You're already late. This lecture's starting.
Right.
So they're across campus, and there's this dude lying on the ground, injured. The ones that they tell, you're already late for your lecture, you need to get to your next lecture, the students didn't stop. They just went straight past this dude lying on the ground.
Right, yeah.
The students that were told to go to the next lecture, but they were given time to do that, the majority of them actually stopped to help this person and see if they were okay. I mean, it's just a massive irony that you could actually recreate that whole Good Samaritan exercise and just look at what being time poor does to people's levels of compassion. So it's not that we're not compassionate, but if you make someone time poor, it just seems to neutralise our desire to help other people, connect with other people, be kind, love people, support people, and do very human things.
Yeah. And I mean, you could apply that in lots of different lives and different ways, because a lot of people are time poor in general. In
modern society. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's because we are chasing, you know, the houses and the cars and all of those things that we really want. The consumer dream. Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know, this might be too big of a question, but what would be some changes that you think would improve the church in this day and age?
In the space of mental health?
Yeah, pretty much. Because I don't think, like, culturally, you'd have to change theologically so many different churches and that sort of thing. But
I mean, overall, how would I change the church today? I'd make the mega church go away. I just don't think that mega church model. I'm not saying we can't have large churches, but the mega church model can just go away as far as I'm concerned.
the money
very
making
much. Yeah,
agenda.
Absolutely. Yeah. And look, you only have to look at what's happened to Hillsong in the media. There's a couple of really good podcasts actually about the Hillsong story, but you know, they've made a lot of mistakes, and they've acknowledged that they've made mistakes.
Yeah.
And they've attempted to rectify some things, but I think when you've got that model, you can only rectify so much. The model is prone to damaging people just by virtue of the model. So, you know, I think that model can just go away now. But when it comes to mental health in churches, I think there's a lot that we can do. Prevention mental health. It's all about education, reducing stigma.
Yeah.
So making it not taboo, and creating mentally healthy culture.
Yeah.
So now I work in big business. I work in businesses up to 1,000 employees. Generally, the businesses I work with are around about 400 to 1,000 employees. So, it's amazing how mentally healthy a mind can be compared to a church.
Yeah, because there's so many people, there's so much scope for people to fall through the cracks and to be hiding some issues and that sort of thing, yeah. Yeah,
exactly. But I work for some really mentally healthy organisations. And so church, there's a lot that they can do, but it's all around training leaders to understand this stuff. Leaders need to know how to have a conversation with someone who has a mental illness, and they don't.
Right, yeah.
So that's all about leadership training. So there's a lot that we can do in the prevention space. The other things that need to go are the toxic behaviours that often happen in organisations of people. So anywhere you organise people, whether it's Christian or non-Christian, you'll see these toxic behaviours pop up. And it's things like hypocrisy and gossip and undermining and manipulation and control and all these kind of things that are human dynamics. But it's interesting to me how businesses, progressive businesses, are stamping out these behaviours in their organisations.
While churches aren't.
And don't really know how to deal with it or what to do about it. So they need to be addressed, I think, more proactively. Almost as a duty of care, almost as a workplace health and safety issue.
Yeah.
Even if you don't deal with it as a faith issue, as a theological issue, just thinking about people's safety, psychological safety, that could be a way to come at it because that keeps people safe.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that always I've been quite curious about with, a business model of church. Surely they should be under the same business laws.
Yeah, no, they are.
As everyone else,
Yeah, they just ignore it.
Oh, man.
I mean, there's three kind of pieces of legislation that govern organisations. One is your sort of tax legislation.
Yeah.
Another is industrial regulations, which are all about employee, how you treat employees, and then you've got the workplace health and safety piece as well.
Yeah.
And the last two, IR and WHS, they do have quite strong regulations and laws around how you need to keep your workplaces safe and how people need to behave and some of the consequences, and churches just completely ignore them.
Yeah.
I was injured in the workplace but not offered workers' compensation at all.
Yeah, which is wild because you could spend 20 years in a job and just have pretty much nothing at the end of it and not be able to function.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And have work anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because the pastor who built the church that I pastored actually physically got that building going. Shortly after that building was opened and, the great celebration, and he basically left, went to the mainland and started a gardening business. Right. And he's never pastored a church since.
Oh, interesting.
And my understanding is that the person who took over after me has now subsequently burned out.
Yes.
But I think he might be on workers' comp, so I guess things have come...
Finally.
Come round, but, I guess the fact that he burned out means that we sort of learned nothing from my experience.
Yeah.
Or the church learned nothing. I certainly learned a lot. But I was never offered workers' comp, and I haven't been able to work at the same capacity ever again.
Yeah.
That I worked back then.
So you don't work full time?
No,
anymore?
I can't work full time. Yeah. I have to manage my symptoms.
Yeah, and that's just the reality of what you deal with. Yeah. So it's kind of like an industry that chews people up.
No, totally. It's a machine.
Yeah.
You get fed in one end and then it's spat out the other.
Because I was sort of thinking that this conversation is a little bit like seeing how the sausage is made. Except that pastors are one of the ingredients in the sausage.
Yeah, no, exactly. We prefer to run the sausage machine, but actually we end up getting sucked in anyway and spat out the other end just like everybody else. Yeah. So churches, I mean, churches can be great places. So
even the building model can be positive in some respects because it gives people somewhere to go.
Yeah, the building model can definitely be positive for the people who are in the model.
Yeah.
It's just that the building model actually acts as a container, ironically. But for the people who are in there, it can be fantastic. So they can be really encouraging spaces, they can be inspiring spaces, they can be full of passionate people, positive people, people who'll support you when you're down. That human connection is so important. Yeah. There's been some interesting research in Australia recently about social isolation, and about 30 to 40 people are socially isolated in Australia, and social isolation is deadly.
Like in 30 or 40 out of 100? Or...
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. It impacts our mental health, but it also actually impacts physical health. So social isolation has the same physical impacts on someone as smoking about 15 cigarettes a day. Yeah. So it'll literally shorten your life. Yeah. So churches are a great place to connect with people, and we all need that connection. So they can be really good places, but there's some dangers there as well. And not all hope is lost. I think we can eliminate a lot of these toxic behaviours, manage them, make sure we minimise them as much as possible, and I think we can make churches healthy spaces for pastors and people. Yeah. But we need to learn and we need to make some significant changes.
And probably start adhering to some of the norms of other industries.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, church borrowed a lot from other industries to get to where they are today. So they're not against borrowing things from the world.
Yeah.
Because in many ways the mega church is quite a worldly model. It's almost like an entertainment multimedia. There's a lot of human dynamics, kind of the economics of managing large groups of people.
Right, yeah.
There's a lot of that sort of psychology in mega churches.
Utilised and...
Yeah, exactly.
And even perfected in many respects.
Yeah, absolutely, perfected.
They've probably outdone a lot of other industries that attempted to do it, which... you know, comes back to the faith aspect of things, like really pressing on that as a manipulation tool, which is very, very bad.
I know,
it's
right?
So bad.
Yeah. Organisational behaviour and organisational management was what I was thinking about.
Right, yeah.
So there's a lot borrowed from there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting, the unit that I did in my... bachelor's on industrial psychology, because you can kind of see like how organizations should function, and psychosocial well-being, it being now a major point that they're trying to do more research on, and trying to implement more in workplaces around the country, because it's necessary if you want to prevent serious issues and compensation claims, and also like high turnover of staff and that sort of thing. These are all indications of unhealthy
of hazards.
Unhealthy workplaces. If you see things like people coming and going very frequently. Because in theory you should be able to do the job for the lifetime of your working career.
Yeah, if it's structured correctly. I mean, the interesting thing is, apparently people can only really know about 150 people.
Right, like personally know.
150 people. Yeah. So that's about the maximum that you could...
Pastor.
Well, it's about the maximum that a group could sustain itself in. Right. So, you know, obviously before the Industrial Revolution, people were quite tribal, lived in villages, small communities. And about 150 was the maximum where you could kind of know everyone. Beyond that, there were people that you just didn't know, didn't have a connection with. So to get a group of people to go beyond 150 is really hard. So I reckon if you did a lot of research, your average church, you know, 90% of your churches would be under 150. and then they would grow and they'd get to that 150 mark and kind of hit a ceiling and maybe go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and
sort of collapse a little bit.
And kind of collapse a little bit, splinter off, that sort of thing. So to get beyond 150, you've got to do some pretty sort of special things to get people to go beyond that. And so, you know, getting to 1,000, 1,500, 10,000.
So you get into like the big performance aspect of
absolutely.
things and the music. Yeah.
And then people can become anonymous and they can come and go, and then how do you make people feel part of it? How do you make people feel like that's their family? Like you've got to do some pretty extraordinary stuff to kind of hack that human brain that's only used to 150 people.
And that's where we get into, I guess, kind of cult psychology.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's where that kicks in. You've got to do some weird stuff to get
control
beyond that.
To control people that you don't know very well, and to inspire loyalty, or at least fear.
Some level of control. Eugene Peterson, he was the pastor that translated the Message translation, and he said that he will not pastor a church where he doesn't know everybody by name. So he's a little bit of a hero of mine. So there you go.
I haven't actually checked him out before.
Top guy.
Interesting.
That's what he said, and I think that's great.
And that should probably be a policy for most churches, just to work within the parameters of what an actual community does look like, and not go beyond
that would be
that.
healthier.
I guess the last part of the conversation that I wanted to talk to you about was, so you experienced burnout and you recovered. So how do you manage that going forward? Especially because like you have essentially gone into another industry which is quite emotionally demanding in a lot of respects. So interesting choice. But how have you been managing it?
So for me, as I said, mental illness is episodic. So I still have the odd episode if things aren't going okay for me. But I try and manage my symptoms. So I still have some of the symptoms of depression and anxiety. So I'm kind of almost actively managing them on a daily basis. And that's through pretty much self-care. Or I like to call it self-maintenance because I work in male-dominated industries. Routine self-maintenance. So it's about knowing what works to manage the symptoms and making sure that I'm doing them. So there's a lot that I do. I just came here from the pool, so swimming every Wednesday and Saturdays. Going for bike rides. I've got to move my body. Moving my body is really, really powerful for managing my symptoms. Making sure that I've got a few hobbies and projects on the go, because I find that helps stop my mind from ruminating. I'm a bit of a ruminator. And I need to do productive things with my mind. So having creative outlets through hobbies. Getting into nature I find really, really helpful. There's a lot of evidence for that as well. So I engage with nature in multiple ways and I used to think that bushwalking and mountain bike riding and hunting and fishing and all those things were the things. No, I kind of, for the last 5-7 years I've kind of thought that they were the things that were making me well, but actually what it was engaging in nature. That was the common denominator, and movement. So with all of those things, I'm active in nature, and so it's the activity combined with the nature, and usually combined with another person. So the social element, the social connection as well, just profound for my mental health. Sleep is really important. I have a really healthy diet. I try and eat as much sort of natural food as I can. The least processed, the better, basically. Lots of fruit and vegetables, good quality protein and unrefined carbohydrates. Minimising alcohol intake. So don't mind a drink every now and then, but if I'm drinking every day, there's a problem.
That's a red flag.
That's a red flag for me. Social connection, really important. So just connecting with other people. It's kind of a little bit magical what happens when people connect, because
the co-regulation.
The co-regulation, So not only are we connecting conceptually around some subject matter, our nervous systems, exactly.
But also, the nervous systems.
Inevitably.
with each other.
Exactly.
So that's a really interesting phenomenon because
Really interesting.
you can find someone that calms you down,
Mm-hmm.
and you can find someone who like provokes anxiety.
Exactly.
in you.
Exactly.
So you kind of have to choose
You do.
your social circle very carefully.
You do, very much so. And that doesn't mean you can't hang out with people who might be a little bit wired, but if it's part of your self-care plan, you're going to be wanting to hang out with people who have your best interests at heart, who support you, who love you, who care about you, and who are reasonably well regulated.
Yeah.
Because I have some symptoms of anxiety, so I want my nervous system to be dialed down. And you know, we're essentially bonding mammals, so we're created for this connection, and we're created to co-regulate. So if I'm terrified and I'm, you know, being pursued by something dangerous, and then I encounter a group of people who kind of take me in, my nervous system will just regulate to match the nervous system of those other people, because now I have support. Now we can be protected and we can be safe.
Which is why isolation is such a big deal.
Exactly, and that's why isolation is a punishment when you're in prison.
And torture.
Exactly,
like
solitary confinement.
So all the torture devices, you know, lack of sleep, isolation. Basically, if you do the opposite of torture
that's right.
to yourself.
De-torture yourself.
Yeah.
So they're really important. Boundaries in work is really important.
Yeah.
So making sure that I don't work too much. So I actively resist working after hours, which is a little bit harder now that I run my own business. So at the start of this year, I launched Industry Minds. So essentially we're looking at occupational mental health. We're helping workplaces create mentally healthy workplaces and support people at work. I guess that's my passion, because I was injured at work.
And so preventing that stuff would be really high on your
preventing
mind.
that, leadership training, mental health first aid training, running peer support programs and offering support to employees in those organisations. Really important. So I do try and manage my workload, and so that it's not bleeding over into my personal life. And I'm a little bit militant about that, because that's what happened to me in the church.
Yeah, and it is really risky running your own business, because you can absolutely just work 24/7.
Yeah, you can. I sort of have a bit of a cap on how much I'd like to earn in any 12-month period.
Right, yeah.
So if I'm earning what I'd like to be earning, then it's worth running my own business. If I'm not, then maybe I shouldn't be. So, and I should just go and
have a job,
be an employee and have a job again. So I'm really fluid and flexible on this, but I'm only 10 months, 11 months into running my own business, and I'm booked out.
Oh, nice.
I'm kind of now thinking, how am I going to get all of my work done before the end of Christmas, and maybe what do I need to push over into next year? So business, there's been just a massive uptake in business, and you know, yesterday I started doing some work for one of the largest employers in Tasmania. So we've just gone from strength to strength, and I've actually put 2 people on subcontracting to me now. Nice. So in 10 months, that's just extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the mental health field,
exactly,
unfortunately, is booming. Because, we're not very good at looking after ourselves and looking after other people, and a lot of industries, in the past at least, have been very exploitative.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, I used to work in the mental health sector, and the last place I worked for was really, really mentally unhealthy.
Wow, yeah.
As an organisation. I mean, the mines that I work for are streets ahead of this mental health organisation. So just in keeping people safe and removing toxic behaviours in the workplace. But it was really toxic. The last place I worked for had 100% turnover in a space of a 2-year period. 100% turnover. That's phenomenal.
Nuts.
Yeah. we lost someone every 6 weeks out of a staff of about 20 people.
Yeah, that is a massive red flag.
It's a huge red flag
in any workplace.
But it was a red flag that that the leaders did not
ignored.
see. So working for myself does have benefits as well. So I have much more autonomy, and autonomy is important. Control, creative control. I can book myself out as much as I like, or I can reserve days for myself and that sort of thing. So.
You can decide when you need downtime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there is potential for having a healthy lifestyle, even if you do run your own business.
Yeah. Yeah. Good to know.
Yeah. And I want to retire early, so that's the other plan as well.
Okay.
So
yeah. And enjoy.
There's so much that I want to do in life outside of work.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to work out ways that I can financially save up to be able to retire early. So I've got that to look forward to as well.
And do more of the nature stuff.
Family, kids. Yeah, I want to obviously be as involved in my kids' life as I possibly can too. So that's really important.
True.
Yeah.
It's actually quite interesting what you said about nature, because the university that I chose to do my bachelor's in, I chose it because they actually offered a unit which was on nature and psychology.
And green space, blue space.
At the time I was a pagan. So
and you thought, of course. I thought, it's like, what, you
brilliant.
guys didn't know this stuff? This is new to you?
And that's one of the things that pagans can kind of boast about, is that they
just that connection to the earth and to nature. And
it's so weird that Christians don't have that because of...
because it's God's creation.
It's God's creation.
I know. But see, I've wondered about this as well, and why Christians aren't more...
outdoorsy and...
not even that. I've wondered why they're not concerned about climate change. And
I actually know quite a few Christians who are.
So there are. But have you ever heard anyone speak from the front about it?
No.
So it's not at that level. But I think, and I've wondered about this, and my thoughts are, and you might have some thoughts on this too, is that this world is passing away. Jesus will return. This world just basically gets burned.
Right,
And then there'll be a new heaven and a new earth.
So kind of like don't invest in this.
Well, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth.
Yeah.
And then God's chosen ones, those who, obviously survive Revelation and the Apocalypse, will be living with God forever in
a new paradise.
So this world's passing away, and I get too attached to it.
Which is like the hope, but at the same time, like, God's whole purpose for this place was that we were to be stewards. Initially. Of the earth, and to partner with Him in looking after the place and making it a beautiful garden and all that sort of stuff. And there's so many metaphors in the Bible about gardening and about planting and taking care of
Jesus in the
things.
Garden of Gethsemane, that's where he went when he was in trouble.
Was praying
went to nature
for his life in many respects.
Exactly.
And it just amazes me that Christians aren't more interested in gardening as like a metaphor for how God sees His creation and how He cultivates us. And the whole pruning analogies and things like that.
Yeah, that's right. The sower and the seed.
Yeah, there's so much value to be seen, and you can get more insight into how God relates to us and relates to creation by knowing about gardening and compost and... Okay, sorry about that for the interruption. The camera actually ran out of memory.
No, we drained it. I know, this has been so exciting.
So it's been a really cool conversation, and thank you so much for giving your time, which is actually a very valuable resource, as you know.
I appreciate the questions. I haven't really ever been asked these questions.
Really?
So, no. When I finished becoming a pastor, I lost my voice in that arena. And pastors only listen to more successful pastors than themselves.
Right, so again, the business model.
That's right, exactly. So maybe if I'd come back from burnout and become a pastor again and got even more successful, I'd have a bit of a voice in this space, but I don't. So I'm really glad to be able to unpack some of this stuff with you and talk about it, and hopefully someone gets something out of it.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much the whole purpose of my YouTube channel, is to kind of talk to Christians and talk with Christians about the importance of mental health and that sort of thing, and to talk about these kind of taboo topics in the church space.
Yeah, great.
Because it was so weird coming from like the pagan groups, and I was like, delivered from all sorts of things that were going on in my house, like essentially hauntings and that sort of thing. So I was delivered, I was saved, I was born again, I was on fire, and I come into like churches and stuff, and I'm like, what is this mess?
This is weird.
What is wrong with you people?
Yeah.
And I totally thought that when I would start, my YouTube channel, that I was going to be calling out a lot of like, the pagan stuff that I had been involved in, that would be...
And it turned out
No, I was addressing all these problems.
The anomalies that you saw in the church,
And I was like, okay, not what I was expecting to happen.
Yeah.
But still cool.
Yeah. Because, like if you were an alien and you came down from a different planet and opened up the Bible and thumbed through it, and then thought, hey, there's this thing called this church in this Bible, I really want to go and check this out.
Yeah.
And you look up the Yellow Pages or the Google Maps or whatever and go to your local church and be like, what is this? It's just like, I've read this, I'm doing this. It's like, what happened?
This is not described.
This is weird. This is a disconnect.
Yeah.
I've come to this cinema and there's all these flashing lights and loud music and there's someone up the front in a suit like just roaring. And so it's been an interesting journey to be a Christian coming back from, like, because my background was Anglican, and that's very prim and proper and refined and reserved. Yes. Sort of Catholic adjacent. So just take the Pope out and then you've got Anglicanism.
Pretty much. And so it was so strange after 15, 20 years away from Christianity to come back, and especially in the digital age, with all the stuff on social media, and to see these things and just be like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, no, look, if you're a hip church these days, you've got to have a pretty good Insta channel.
The social media presence is paramount.
It has to be.
But I love things like Sunday Cool Teas, who are a YouTube channel that kind of make fun of a lot of their own Christian stuff.
Awesome.
So they're quite funny. And so you kind of have to have a sense of humour about it in some respects, but also you have to have a few serious conversations. And just be like, okay, this is not healthy.
Exactly. Yeah, look, you don't want to get too bent out of shape over about it because it will chew you up, and you don't have a lot of control over it. You can have some influence, but you don't have control. So I think that's the right balance to have. Maintaining a bit of sense of humour about it, understanding what's gone on, possibly presenting some alternatives, some ideas, and trying to get those ideas to give birth to real change.
That's the hope and the dream.
That's the hope and the dream. Awesome.
So thanks so much, John, for
Appreciate
coming.
it.
And
stay curious.
Yes, stay curious. Hopefully this was helpful, guys, and let me know your thoughts in the comments if you have some of your own interesting experiences with megachurches or not megachurches, and community mindsets out there, or mental health struggles. Feel free to share, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Beautiful. See ya.